Grey Zone Warfare is having something of a second wind, maybe that's a third wind. This unique blend of extraction, but not really, but you also extract stuff, but it's also an open world PvPvE as well. It certainly brings something to the market that you just can't find anywhere else. The recent resurgence of players, from old hands to new boots on the ground, has even had it fly up these Steam sales charts. So does Grey Zone Warfare deserve a spot in your Steam library, alongside the other mill sims and extraction games? I'm LCTR. If you're a fan of games like this, then please do tap the subscription button. If you enjoyed the video, the old thumb up button too. I cover a variety of many FPS titles. Your support is very much appreciated. And also, in my normal full disclosure way, I want to say that the devs of Grey Zone sent me keys to access the game to try out with friends. So the first thing about Grey Zone Warfare is that it's not really an extraction shooter. Their own description of the game on Steam has evolved over time, and yes, it did use the word extraction itself until not that long ago. But as that genre has evolved, moving away from that description does indeed mark Grey Zone out as being something different. There are fundamental differences to the experience, and in fact, in some ways Tarkov and Ark Raiders are more similar to each other than they are to Grey Zone. The big one is the living map. It's not a raid-based or round-based system. Your time on the server is somewhat like your time on an MMO server. There's a day-night cycle, there's an element of fast travelling, you're doing quests, you're leveling up, you're earning rewards. I'll mix in some of that Milsim Tarkov feel, and you're getting closer to understanding what Grey Zone has to offer. In some ways, it's incredibly hardcore in a Milsim way, yet with the persistent world and the ability to return to your body if you were killed and then get that loot back, there's an argument that it's also much more approachable for those people who are finding the existing extraction game loop to be a little too punishing. For those who have played Cyberpunk 2077, you know how much the environment, the city itself, is arguably the main character of the game. Well, in Grey Zone Warfare, their tropical jungle map is similarly impactful. I have to say this, I think it's just the best jungle map in gaming. I simply don't know of another title that brings that world to life in the same way that Grey Zone manages. It's not just the quality of the visuals, but also how real the spaces themselves feel. It breaks out of that this is a play space in a game map feel that plagues so many other titles. It feels very true to the world it's trying to create. That's something that Ark Raiders also does very well, albeit with a very different visual style. Also, the variation on display is worth noting too. It would be easy to have all the sections of the jungle feel broadly identical, but you can see that time and effort have gone into subtle variations of the dense underground layering mixed with wider open sections that stops the map from feeling boring and uniform, and then they mix in decent elevation changes to further enrich the experience. It has its limits, obviously. If you don't like the colour green, then perhaps this isn't the map for you. It's a key pillar for Grey Zone, and it really sets the tone for the level of realism and fidelity that the devs are aiming for. It really is a credit to the environmental artists and designers, and I have wow moments, and I'm impressed with it every time I play. The improved questing, or tasks as they're known in the game, is something trumpeted as one of the main bullet points for this most recent 0.4 Spearhead update. The headline numbers are 100 plus new tasks with 50 plus updated tasks, bringing the grand total to more than 250. I actually got access to the game during the previous 0.3 patch, and certainly the task system feels a lot smoother to interact with now. There's less toing and froing, you can often complete tasks with ease and grab new ones and keep yourself in the field. The tasks have also become repeatable to create a sort of progression loop in 0.4. The tasks themselves are probably familiar to those people who've played Tarkov. Find this item, investigate this area, pick up this dealie, bump off that dude, that sort of thing. There's decent variation, but it does feel like interacting with a partially static world. There will be troops that you need to avoid or take care of regarding locations, but there's nothing as dynamic as intercepting a convoy or waiting for enemy troops to push into an ambush. Completing the quest is also improved from before. Sometimes it actually required you to read through the paragraph of information about the actual task and then decipher what it actually wanted, and it felt almost like an old school MMO vibe in that way. Now at least there's a picture of the rough location, but too often you have to resort to googling the quest name to find out that what you're looking for is some tiny item that you walk past 20 times. That is, if you're lucky, because sometimes the info is missing online or it's out of date or whatever. I spent about 30 minutes earlier today searching a small 2-story house for an item to report my findings before just giving up. I still don't know what I missed. And a quick aside, while we're talking about Googling for info, but you're going to be doing this a lot for a number of things in the game. For me, it was also about the weapon construction information. The game is basically at real-world levels when it comes to gun parts. So if you're well-versed, then maybe you know what to look for, but not knowing what a gas block is, or thinking that a Picatinny rail sounds more like a train company, means that you'll be spending a lot more gaming time with your browser window open too. I'm hoping this whole area of the game gets a usability pass at some point in the future. But back to the tasks. One task that does seem mercifully rare is actually RNG gated, and I mean actually quite literally RNG gated. One of the early tasks in the nearby starter village is to access some intel behind a locked door. The key for that door appears to be an RNG chance to drop from any of the soldiers in the vicinity. Wow, as a squad of 4, we cleared that village numerous times, maybe over 30 to 40 minutes, before the key finally dropped. And that kind of content gating does not feel great to play, but as I said, it doesn't seem to be used that much, but it could do with being removed entirely from the game. The task system did lead to some unforeseen and frustrating interaction with squad play at times. We roll on the same team, picking the same quests, all in lockstep with each other, as you might experience in an MMO. Yet at some points things began to become fragmented. I died to some PvP, and a bunch of quests reset as you actually failed them for dying, but I couldn't seem to pick them up again instantly, so over time we got into a sort of staggered state with constant comms of, do you have that quest to the west? No, further west, it's called, whatever the name is. No, oh wait, just to say, I got the quest that we just completed a minute ago, and so on. And actually that leads me into talking about another main annoyance I have for using the map in squad play. The lack of player names of the map is a real friction point for me. I can't tell you how many times we'd have comms when finally someone would find the mission item and say, it's over by me, and then you'd have to look at the map and see the green squares, not really know who just talked, so you'd have to mouse over each one individually, and it happened so many times. It felt like Groundhog Day with the number of times I was doing it. And some simple map label names would be great for squad members. It's probably worth pointing out at this point that Grey Zone Warfare is an in-development title, with many systems and approaches feeling like they need more attention or are currently missing. You'll know the style of early access title that we've become accustomed to these days, and argue that there's a lot of enjoyment to be had in early access titles, but if you find you like that polished experience of that 1.0 full release, then new players should go into this with their eyes open at the moment. As for tasks with squads, we ended up splitting into smaller squads to do common tasks. Knowing that many of those tasks are actually repeatable now did limit some of the frustration of feeling out of sync with others. But overall, it feels like some sort of squad task-specific functionality to keep everyone doing the same thing would be a big improvement for friends who want to play together. PvP is perhaps in a surprising spot for Grey Zone Warfare, and I'd argue that it's feeling like not the main focus for the game currently. That is, even after 2 years of early access, the PvP side of the game feels somewhat unresolved. You can absolutely PvP though. You can prey on enemy helicopters and ambush players. You can wait for combat outposts to be taken over by the enemy and then fight to take them back. And all the time you could be stealing their stuff for that sweet dopamine hit. But some sides of this just don't seem to really sit right. The ability of players to spawn at local friendly combat outposts means that a player that you just killed can respawn, gear up a little bit, and with the knowledge that you're probably taking time to loot, rush straight back to where they died and engage you again. This, of course, is wholly outside of the gameplay loop for what people expect from an extraction shooter game. It really does mark Grey Zone out as something different, and the reason why it doesn't describe itself as such. Another point is the red circle that appears on the map when PvP happens. It was discussed on Twitter recently, with community members saying that it appears fairly rudimentary to use the appearance of that circle to give players information about where the other players are. It appears that even if you suppress an enemy rather than hitting them, that will instantly alert them and inform them that they're being engaged in PvP, something they wouldn't have otherwise known. And there are ways to tweak what is here clearly. For example, one idea is I'd love to see the devs only allow local outpost respawn when players are killed by AI, and forcing players killed in PvP back to their main base. That would give so much more meaning to the individual engagements, as at the moment they seem almost frivolous when you're defending an area and killing the same player over and over, knowing that they can effectively do this all day. On the red PvP highlighting ring, a larger area, something off-center. I saw one streamer talking about how you could use the map grid to highlight a whole block. All of those would help stop accidental leaking of information to players. And overall, it's clear that the PvP side has a ways to go, but the fights that you do have are intense and hectic in that way that milsims only manage, and it can clearly be a huge pillar for the game with some more development. And that does all lead me to talking about PvE again. Clearly, the tasks have you engage frequently with AI NPCs, again, something that's been improved in 0.4. Previously, they had an almost otherworldly aim and awareness, and I've been domed by rando enemies that I could barely even see before, so the changes mentioned in the 0.4 patch notes on that side are really appreciated. I'd say that the NPC AIs are still a little too aware though. They seem to spot you on what feels like dense undergrowth with real ease. Some of that feels like the opposite of the whole feeling of sneaking through the jungle that the game should allow. They also seem a little over-aware, even with silenced longer-range shots, leading to whole areas of NPCs suddenly knowing your location and firing with reasonable accuracy. It's not the aimbot-like AI of before, but it still feels fairly overtuned. Also, on the PvE side, there's an option every time you start the game to join either a PvPvE server or something that's purely PvE. At the start with my friends, we chose PvPvE exclusively. I find that it does give an added threat to every area that you visit, meaning that you're never truly sure who might be noticing you taking outposts on the map and then choose to fight back. It's enjoyable. I never really thought I'd play this game alone. These sort of lose everything when you die FPS games tend to make me just want to round up a suitably talented group of friends to carry me while I'll pretend to be good at the game. But actually, playing the PvE mode solo, I found myself enjoying it way more than I ever expected to, really. It was a whole different tone compared to the PvPvE mode. Gone was the push all the time ethos of playing with friends. Now I needed to be slower, more methodical, not to aggro too many enemies or be surprised by someone flanking to my rear. I can obviously still die with a single unlucky hit. It actually reminded me of some of the more friendly lobbies that Art Raiders became famous for. You see enemy players around, many will bid you good morning, and that whole level of threat is removed from the equation of the game and means that the forest feels almost more like a sanctuary compared to the concentrations of NPCs in the towns and buildings. I'm not sure if I'd ever like the game to be purely PvE, but the option of having it as a different tempo and style of gameplay took me by surprise by how much I enjoyed it, and the game feels richer for its inclusion. The graphics, as you can see, are worthy of praise. The weapon models and the whole environment have been meticulously crafted to feel real and believable in their world. I know I've talked about the map in previous sections, so I won't repeat myself all over again, but the jungle is superbly well made, and every corner is environmentally dressed. You won't go into a civilian building and find it barren of props and breaking the illusion of it being a real place. The other side to this is, of course, performance. I think it's fair to say that in previous versions of Grey Zone, that performance was probably the #1 complaint. It was bad enough to really impact the experience. In 0.4, the devs have made a concerted effort for performance, and it does show. Although I'm in a bit of an odd situation because I've upgraded my PC just as this patch has been released, so my comparison is not one-to-one at all. But the friends who I played with before on similar hardware say it's much more playable than the previous 0.3 patch. I chose to play with 2x frame generation, in addition to capping my FPS at 140 for my screen, and the game rendered pretty much faultlessly at 70 FPS, with very livable input lag. No, it wasn't as crisp as without frame gen, but it felt like a smoother overall experience. I say pretty much, as there was one scenario where I could always get the FPS to drop every time, and that was using an optical scope. Grey Zone does optics the, quote, proper way, in that they don't use the age-old FPS game trick of simply narrowing your field of view to simulate a scope and then blurring the outer edge. Similar to other milsims, Grey Zone uses a so-called picture-in-picture approach, where it effectively has to render the scene twice and overlay the scope as a picture over the normal view. That is much more realistic, but it does come with a notable performance hit. This has been improved in 0.4, but the drop in FPS is notable, and is one of the reasons why I went with 2x frame gen, as it kept the experience feeling smooth without ever having to lower my graphics settings, which were pretty much all maxed out. Audio on the whole is good, and actually, you know what, sometimes it's great. The environmental audio of the jungle and the weather often combine to be truly immersive. The different weather types trigger the whole different environmental audio cues, with birds and insects quietening as the heavens open. The rain and storm especially sell the dampened, sodden downpour feeling to a T. The inside of buildings is similarly immersive, with my absolute favourite being rain on thin metal sheet shack roofs. It sounds superb. The third-person weapon audio is believable. It's a pop and a snap to people firing in your vicinity, although arguably you can probably hear a little bit too far in the game. But the audio is missing some of that dynamic reverb when weapons are fired inside of a building or enclosed spaces. There's none of that washing echo that you might expect. Long-term viewers of the channel know what's coming next, and the first-person weapon firing audio still, even after being updated in 0.4, isn't quite up to the rest of the game audio, in my opinion. Yes, I'm going to mention Squad again, as it's still the high watermark for weapon audio in milsims. Firing weapons in Grey Zone just doesn't have that drama and thump that Squad delivers. Especially when firing unsuppressed in closed locations, the noise should almost be overwhelming, and hearing others fire nearby actually sounds almost more believable than firing your own weapon. And for a game that does so much to sell realism and authenticity, there's still some work to do in this regard. You might be thinking, oh, but they're wearing those tactical headphones. But to be honest, it doesn't make that much difference without them as well. I played a lot of it without them. But you might also be saying, oh, but you're picky about this. And, well, yeah, I'd probably agree with you on that point. But with so much effort going on realism, it stands out for not being quite at that same high-quality bar as you see the devs are clearly aiming for in everything else. On the upside, though, the non-firing weapon audio, that is, the handling of the weapon, is worthy of praise. The only way to check your ammo is by pressing V, or the whole weapon status with Alt-V. Your character then does an impressive animation, checking of the magazine, the status of the chamber, the fire mode, and so on. Each move has a believable, authentic, non-generic feeling handling noise. It is really something that I haven't experienced in many other games. It really sells the idea of it being a real object in a subtly impressive way. As I said in my intro, 0.4 has seen a huge surge in players back to the game. Previously, it was sitting at the 2,000 to 3,000 daily peak player range, but the latest patch blew that away with an astonishing peak of over 40,000. Even coming up on 2 weeks later, we're almost back to 40,000 players during the weekends, so it really has some staying power for sure. So, Grey Zone Warfare, is it worth playing? In this latest 0.4 patch, it really did win me over in a way that I wasn't expecting. I knew with friends it could be fun, even more so now with better performance, but enjoying the solo PvE mode really added another string to its bow. The gameplay is improving with each patch, but it's clear that there are uneven areas of development with the gameplay loops, with PvP arguably feeling behind PvE currently. I think with some relatively small tweaks, it could be in a much better spot. The tasks and leveling give you reasons and easy goals to keep you playing. From Googling, I hear that getting level 3 in different vendors is where they really let you buy some of the good stuff. I find that simple goals like that help motivate me over something that is a pure sandbox-style title. The map and other graphics speak for themselves, as I said. I think it's the best jungle in gaming, bar none. The map is an achievement in its own right, and something that the devs should be rightly proud of. This is an in-development game, though, and it's been in early access for about 2 years now. I would say that there's still a significant way to go before all the systems that the devs clearly want are fully fleshed out. There's a lot to enjoy with the game as it stands. It delivers a unique experience that nothing else in the market really manages. Yes, there are elements that might remind you of extraction shooters, but the open world map especially marks it out as a real different experience, and one that I really happen to enjoy. What do you think about Grey Zone Warfare? Are you a fan of these sort of games? Are you a fan of milsims? Let me know your powerful thoughts and feelings by leaving a comment below right now. Like always, I'll be reading every single one of them. If you did enjoy this video, please tap the thumb up button and the sub button. It supports the channel, helps me continue to make videos like this in the future, but also telling you when the new ones come out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.